This video explains coloring techniques, specifically how to keep your color from looking flat. So what I wanted to do here was talk really quickly about background, and then I also wanted to talk about color and, coloring so that it looks a little bit more three-dimensional, less flat. So first of all, when it comes to backgrounds, a lot of you like to forget what we've learned in perspective when it comes to the background. If you're having anything else go on in the background, you should have a horizon line. What the horizon line does is it tells your eyes where the ground ends, basically where the ground meets sky. Even if you're indoors, you should see where the wall meets the floor. Remember that things drawn in the background should be smaller. So normally an evergreen tree would be taller than this person, but in perspective it should look a little bit smaller, okay? If you have like a road or anything like that, remember that the road or a sidewalk or a walkway should get larger as it comes forward, kind of like that. Sometimes I'll have people do a story that takes place in a school. So let's say this figure's like walking down a hallway in a school. And then, so the hallway, let's say like these are the doors down there at the way end of the hallway would get larger as it comes forward. If you were drawing in like lockers or a doorway, these would be vertical lines for the locker. The tops of the lockers, if there was like an imaginary dot right here in the middle, the tops of the lockers would go towards that dot. So this is like a 1-point perspective drawing of lockers in a hallway. You might want to go in and like, give the lockers actual locks or something like that, but that's pretty much it, okay? If you're doing a road or a sidewalk, same way. You'll have like an imaginary 1 point back there where these lines are coming from, kind of coming towards you. And then other than that, when you go to color backgrounds, I'll talk about that in a little bit. We don't want your background to be colored so dark and so strong with all these bold colors that it takes away from the figure in the foreground. So we're gonna color the figure kind of like we did in our last project, but anyway, we're gonna color the figure really dark, really vivid, and then the background will be kind of subtle, okay? All right, so how to color these figures to make them look three-dimensional. I'd started coloring this one and then I was like, whoa, I wanna stop because I wanna show this to you guys. But when you're doing skin tones, I don't want you to just use like the straight up peach that comes in the box or straight up brown or that kind of stuff. Even if you're using paint or anything else along those lines, I feel like when you do that, it looks really artificial. Like they just look like they've come out of a color box, not like a real human color. These are my main skin tone colors right here. So it's basically like peach, tan, light brown, brown. Oh, I think I switched those. Light brown, brown, and then black. So all of these colors could make any skin tone out there. Sometimes I'll add in a little bit of orange or pink to skin tones, but basically it's just done in light layers. So you just start kind of lightly and you can layer up. What I'm doing right now is I'm just covering the skin in like a tan. I'm gonna go around and darken the edges later, and I'm also gonna darken some shadows on the face, because if I just color it flat all the way over the face, it really does flatten out an image that seemingly kind of looked 3D before. Lips are not far off from your skin color, so what I usually like to do is color over them with the skin color, and then just go back in and add a little bit of pink or maybe even a slight bit of red. The top lip will always look darker than the bottom lip. And be careful, boys, because if you get a little heavy-handed on the red or the pink, it's going to look like you're wearing lipstick. So unless that's something you're going for, just watch out for that. I'm going to do a little brown on the lips because I don't want it to look like lipstick per se. I just want that top lip to look a little bit shadowed. So the shadows on the face are going to be top lip, a little bit underneath the bottom lip. I'm just going to create a little look of a shadow down there. The bottom, like the tip of the nose where the nostrils are, will be shadowed, and there will be a little bit of shadow under the nose. So I'm going to add a little bit of shadow there. In the eye sockets, so like above the eye but below the eyebrow, that area will be shadowed, especially along the eye and definitely in this crevice where like the eyebrow meets the bridge of the nose. That's one of the darkest shadows on the face. You're going to have a little bit of shadow underneath the eye, but be careful, don't get carried away there. I'm actually going to go back to my tan instead of do it with the brown so that it doesn't look like she's got bags under her eyes. I mean, this is supposed to be me, and if I was drawing me, I probably would draw some serious dark circles under the eyes. You guys can mock me, but when you have kids, you're like, oh man, I totally know I'm a skimp and I'll look like she had black eyes all the time. Anyway, moving on. So then I'm doing a little bit of shadowing along the edge of the nose, under the eye. I'm doing this with the same tan color so that it's not too dramatic of a shadow. And by the way, if you want to make more subtle shadows, you can definitely do that with your same color that you've been using. If you want to make them look a little bit more dramatic, you can go in with like a shade darker. So remember, they kind of go in that order, like peach, tan, light brown, brown, black. That's the order. So just go one shade darker than whatever you're using for the skin tone. Oops, all right. Underneath the hair, you'll have a little bit of shadow underneath this area. Am I working in the realm? There we go. Sometimes I get outside of the view of the camera and I don't realize it because I got a lot going on. Okay, anyway, so I'm shading the forehead. I'm doing a little bit of shadow underneath the hair. I think I'm gonna come in with that brown and do a little bit of brown underneath there because there's usually a pretty good shadow in some areas on the forehead where the hair is kind of shadowing. On the neck and the ears are definitely gonna get darker underneath that top area here that kind of curves out and around. I'll maybe come back in with some brown for the ears. Underneath the bottom of the jawline, I'm just gonna do a light shadow so that it looks like not a flat form, but kind of more like a rounded edge there. I'll come back in with this brown, do a little bit darker shadows inside the ears. Just really under that top pocket there is like the only area I'm shading in on the ear. On the neck, you're definitely gonna get some darker shadows on the neck. And even like this chest area here, I'm gonna go dark on these corners and kind of fade inward. When it comes to like hands and limbs and all that kind of stuff, they're basically just gonna be darker on the edges. If there's an area that you know that kind of dips in, like maybe at the belly here, or like underneath the knee, if you wanna do a little bit more shadow, that would be fine. I'm just gonna throw a quick shadow underneath each of these fingers to make them look more 3D. When coloring the clothing, let's see, this is red. I'm gonna do a red and black plaid shirt, so I think I'm just gonna go in and color the entire shirt red. And then I'm gonna go in with the black over to do like the checks. It'll save you time. Instead of like trying to be so precise with the red, I can just come back over with the black later. If you like underneath this collar, I know that area is gonna be shadowed, so I'm gonna get a little darker in there and kind of fade out as I go. At the bottom of the shirt here too, I think it would be a little bit shadowed, so I'm gonna color darker there. When you're coloring with colored pencil, please make sure and have, can you guys still see that? Okay, good. Please make sure and have a really nice sharp colored pencil point. That will help you. Oh, on the hair. A cool thing you can do on the hair and the eyes, I'm really glad I remembered this because this is super important. And the eyes can be done with any color. You could even exaggerate the eyes and make them sort of an unrealistic color. But often what happens in someone's eyes, they look darker at the top. Regardless of what color your eye is, they look darker up top. Brown, but anyway, I'm gonna add a little bit of a golden hue in there. Because it's animation, you can draw attention to things more by adding some brighter colors that maybe don't actually exist in person. My hair is pretty much black, but just for fun, I think I'm gonna add a little bit of blue in there. What is this? Is this purple? That's just regular blue, okay. Maybe I want some purple too. Okay, so when coloring the hair, you should have areas, like down under here would be definitely like a really dark area of the hair. So this area is gonna be a little bit darker. And then as I move out into these areas that are not shadowed, like by the neck and other things, it'll get lighter out here. You might even have areas where there's glares. So glares then would be left white. Like, you know, like especially on dark hair, you'll see areas that are like really stark highlights. So I'm just gonna color like around this area, kind of leave that area that I just outlined open. And that will create a look like a glare on that part of the hair, like it's shiny. I'm gonna go over with some of these blues. If it gets too blue, I can always go back in with some black. A lot of brown here has a lot of like red tones in it. Blondes, you don't want to maybe color the hair like super, super yellow. You want to put a little bit of brown in there too. Maybe even a little bit, honestly, of this peach color for blonde hair. And then also some of this tan makes nice shadows on blonde hair. Yeah, so make sure when you're coloring the hair also that you kind of figure out like where would be darker on this hair? The area that's behind the body probably. You know, and this hair doesn't look flat. It looks like it's kind of flowing up like that. So the biggest part of that curve would be lighter, and then in the smaller parts of the curve, it would probably be darker. You might even get like a little bit of shadow underneath here from that part on top, kind of casting shadows. So yeah, feel free to mix your colored pencils. How to mix them? You just put light coats of both colors over and they mix together, okay? And color with dimension. Color neatly, obviously, all right? Nice sharp colored pencil point will help you to achieve that. So we covered eyes, hair, clothing. Let me do one more part of the clothing. So just when coloring like the limbs, the arms or the legs, make sure that it's a little bit darker on the outside edge. And then as you move towards the center, it gets a little bit lighter. And that will help to make you look 3D, again, more rounded, okay? So then when I color with the black, like let's say when I go in and do my checkers, I'm gonna make these checkers darker on the outside edge here. And then this check in the middle will be a little bit lighter because it's in more of a highlight area. And I'll do the same here. This one on the inside will be lighter, and the check on the outside will be a little bit darker. Okay? So hope that helps with color. Make sure your coloring is vivid. Oh man, I didn't realize you couldn't see the bottom of the shirt. Make sure your coloring is vivid and neat. And yeah, I'll put the camera back on to show you guys maybe a finished product if I ever get this done. Okay, I was just working on coloring the hair, and I realized that I probably should kind of break this down for you guys. So when you have hair on somebody's head, usually there's a part in the hair, and wherever you want the part to be, there's a V, and then the hair kind of goes up and goes over to the side. Darker hair tends to have a little bit more sheen to it, if that makes any sense to you guys. So like with darker hair, you'll have more shiny areas above. Let me kind of zoom in here so you guys can see this really close up. So when you're doing a glare on the hair, like these white areas where it looks kind of shiny, what I want you to do with the glare is think about which point of the hair would be like the highest, because light sources usually come from above, and then kind of lightly sketch in an area to say like, okay, that's going to be the highlight. And then you go in and start coloring with, you know, whatever colors you want. And then you stop those colors at this glare. You don't color past the glare. So like maybe this hair would be darker on the side right here, and I would kind of fade in and then stop at the glare. Maybe it'd be darker over here. And then again, as I go towards that glare, I'm gonna have my colors kind of fade out. Like so. You don't want it to be a straight edge. You want it to be kind of an imperfect shape, so that the shape on the edges is kind of something like this. It shouldn't look like a perfect rectangle, otherwise it'll look maybe a little bit too stylized, too cartoony. And then if you wanted to go in with like darker colors, like a darker shade of brown, or like even if the hair was red, you could add a little brown to it. If the hair was blonde, you could add a little bit of tan here. If it was black hair, you could add like blue tones. And again, I was saying with browns, you could even add reds, some things like that. So that's how you make hair look shiny if you want to. All right, here's a really quick tidbit. When I'm coloring the letters, I'm planning on doing like a fade on this letter. It's gonna be red at the bottom, orange at the top. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep my red light at the center of the letter. And the red's gonna get a little bit darker towards the bottom. Another thing I'm doing in order to make this red or this letter look kind of three-dimensional is I'm adding a slight shadow on the bottom left of all these letters. So bottom left, I'm doing a shadow. When I create this shadow, actually, you know what? Let me show you this on the S. I feel like it might be a little bit more apparent. So first I just go in and I color like basic flat red, and no magic really happens with the letter. It just kind of looks red. Well, then after I get done with the red, that's when I start adding those shadows in the bottom left. So what I'll do is I'll add just like a dark area right here. It's just a dark spot, and then I kind of have that dark spot fade into the lighter tones. Notice I didn't put that dark spot all the way on the edge. The reason I didn't put it all the way on the edge is because usually things that are three-dimensional have a little bit of reflected light, which is light bouncing off of other objects or just things around it in the environment. So if you wanted to create that 3D feel, you just color basically with your color, just like flat. Where I'm going to fade into the orange, by the way, I'm going to keep things light towards the middle of the letter. So I'm just going to color basic red, and then at the bottom left, and you don't have to do bottom left, you could do it in the top right, wherever. I'm just going to do a dark area, and it's kind of like an L shape here, kind of wraps around the bottom of that part of the H. Just do a dark spot, and then I'm going to go over with a medium tone to kind of create a fade in that dark spot, so it's fading into the lighter areas of that letter. Can you guys see that? And make sure up here I'm going to fade out so that I can start in with my orange. Maybe I'll do a quick example on the orange so you guys can see what that'll look like. So here on the R, I'm going to start in kind of light with the orange where the red left off. So the light coat of the orange and the light coat of the red are going to overlap. And you don't need to make letters two-toned. It's just, you know, obviously you guys know how to color them solid. I just wanted to show you a different example of if you wanted to make a letter kind of two-toned, how to do that. All right, and I'm just going to color nice and flat with this orange because there's not any real like shadow happening up here. The only area I might create like a little bit of shadow is maybe just like around the outside edge. Like wrap it a little bit with that orange, or maybe even like continue up this shadow from the red. Just create a shadow look like that, so that would be like the one finished letter. Here's the finished product, guys. Try to make sure that your coloring is super neat and that you can see all your colors from a distance. Good luck.